Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He's the author of the book Fungus Theory of Cosmos Growth. Or conscious growth, sorry, none other than Mr. Mark L. Christensen.
Yes.
Welcome, Mr. Mark.
Thank you.
Yes, and can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
I'm a lifelong artist. Spent a good part of my younger years pushing music, and came to Hollywood and became a film director, science fiction film writer, and then science reality writer now in the end of my career.
Mr. Mark Christensen, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So tell us, Mr. Mark, fungus theory, what is all about?
Well, basically, it's a concept that combines all evolution on the planet Earth, and it meets the same kind of uh, requirements for any other planet out there that would harbor biological life. So uh, the evidence shows two things about fungus. One is the biological fungus, and then there's the metaphoric conceptual fungus in the end. So I'll start with one and then tell you the other. The first one
Okay.
is uh, amino acids, bacteria, and then what eventually formed was the original fungus that was both plant and animal together. Now, this is already science that I've just researched. It's nothing that I went and found, myself. This is common known science. So this original fungus is both plant and animal, and we think we're calling it protista, and that's a common term in the biological evolution world. So since then, what had happened is it's been recorded that this plant and animal fungus did a split about 2 billion years ago. And the plant side left animal and fungus. About 500 million years later, the animal portion split away from the biological fungus. And so now we have three elements: plant, fungus, and animal. And this is a major split. It's been recorded in science. It's a fact. And what you can tell is that the plant life went on to land and prepared food for what might one day walk over and eat it. But we had to go through millions of years of ocean life to build a vertebrae that would eventually stand up, walk over to the plant life, and eat it. And so, in concept, it's a self consuming cannibalistic idea that when we eat a tomato, you and I, when we eat a tomato, we're eating ourselves, or when we eat anything for that matter, we're eating a combination of our original selves as that original fungus 2 billion years ago. So that is the biological evidence. And then the metaphorical evidence is that the earth one day ends. And I know that a lot of people don't think about that a lot, but they think about the beginning of earth a lot. And that's a significant detail in everybody's subconscious and the way they think about their life, but they never think about the actual end. So to give you some evidence, every 60 seconds in the universe, a star explodes, which is what we can see. And that's only what we can see. The reality is there's a star exploding every second throughout that entire universe. So we happen to be evolving around one, and we're not excluded. And we live in a very egotistical self centered world, which is awesome. But you want to put together this reality. I call it the human condition of absolute. That we're going to absolutely perish one day when the earth ends. So what does that mean? It means there's a biological bookend, one in the beginning and one in the end, and that in itself is a system. It's absolutely a system, and it's a system within the solar system. Why do they call it a solar system? So everything within the system is a system. What is that system doing? So I've gone through the entire science world to find all the evidence to show what it's doing. Is it doesn't care about you and I so much. It doesn't care about the animals or the biology. What it cares about is what's going to be successful in surviving the end of Earth. And that in itself looks like what the concept is. It's getting something to uh, originate from nothing, which would be biology itself, and then you and I, and then we're supposed to find a way off the planet before it disintegrates. That's the big picture.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mark, for sharing your fungus theory to the world. Yes, people, our sun will be explode soon and we all be annihilated. And we will having forming another life form for sure. So, Mr. Mark,
Yes.
your book purposes a truly unique idea. In a simple term, can you summarize the fungus theory of conscious growth and explain why fungus of a life form is the key actor of factor in this cosmic drama?
Easy answer. In order to grow something consciously, so let's just say that the product of all of this is consciousness or conscious growth, right? So when the Earth is gone and we have survived in a spaceship, we are now in that spaceship looking back at a piece of charcoal, the Earth. We have grown consciously. So more and more and more. So that's what is being made as a product through all of this. But to do that, you have to have expanding matter, lots of it. And on that expanding matter, it almost has to look accidental, but it's not. That this biology forms, and every planet in the universe is going to be different enough so that when water is applied to that planet, it goes into the composition made of that planet's makeup and uniquely builds its own fungus with those components in order to build a life form that will eventually be able to survive the end of its planet all over the universe. So, if you want to, another word for planet is plant, like a plant.
Hmm.
It's funny that the word looks really close, plant, planet, and the entire universe is a planetation to do this. So fungus is kind of alien-like substance. It's both plant and animal, and that's very unique. Um, well, for instance, today if you order a portobello mushroom, it's expensive, it's large, and it actually tastes like a steak because you're kind of eating an animal that's grown plant-wise. So that's another piece of evidence of why uh, fungus is really the key in growing something that will be smart and psychological and capable enough of realizing that it's doomed where it's at on its planet because it has a burn day, if you will, and that cognitive understanding uh, ignites the vitality in that animal to produce whatever it can to avoid that death. And we do anyway here as humans today. We try to extend life to visit our relatives longer, keep our relatives along longer. We want to live longer. This is an innate process that the fungus instilled in our nervous system. But eventually, when we're capable of understanding the entire function of the solar system and the universe, then we'll understand that getting off this planet has always been the fungus's primary goal.
Mr. Mark, how does this fungal network actually facilitate the growth of consciousness? Is it a literal transfer of information, a symbolic relationship, or something more enigmatic?
Easy answer. Consciousness is nothing but information and experience. That's it. And it's a compiling of that through the years. So if you look at a piece of bacteria, basically they
Hmm.
just fed on themselves. There was no plant life. So bacteria was animal eating animal. And uh, that eventually, that eating frenzy back then forced the development of the original fungus in animal. And then it was single celled and then became multicellular, all because it's just trying to survive being eaten. Um, and your question specifically, before I get too much into a tangent here, um, what was your question again?
How
Do you
does the
remember?
fungal network actually facilitate
Ah,
the growth consciousness?
right. Well, you can't give away this secret. You can't give away to what's growing consciously the answer to why it's here and where it came from. And that in my book is called Hidden True Origin. Not to go there right now, but to answer your question, to get a brain capable of conceiving the end of the earth takes the entire evolutionary biological timeline to grow that brain. So uh, we all like the story of Adam and Eve, and I love it. But we don't have their bones, but we got lots of bones to show that the brain that grew capable enough for you and I to have this intelligent conversation took all that time from bacteria to you and I in this conversation. It took all of the uh, ocean animals. It took all of the amphibious animals, then reptilian, and in this order, and then bipedal, quadrupedal. I'm sorry, quadrupeds, and then mammalian. So you had a quadruped that was a reptilian, then you had a quadruped that was warm-blooded, like a bear, and then eventually an ape, and then bipedalism has to occur in order to develop the brain size large enough so that conscious grows to that level of understanding that you and I have today. So basically, this fungus is just trying to grow a brain through all these life forms until eventually, ta-da, here we are with a brain capable of having this intelligent conversation. That is the idea, or it's actually the physics that's showing us that the intent is to grow consciousness through brain size.
Mr. Mark, what is the initial evidence or scientific observation that led you to connect mycology with cosmology and study of consciousness?
Well, being in communications and writing, being in writing in general, and trying to solve society's basic problems, um, it's very vast and scattered. So eventually, I started to get a sense that information travels like fungus, like little bits of information go from people to people. A new piece of news on one side of town can reach to the other side of town by word of mouth, just from one human to another, a phone call and this and that, so a gesture. It's amazing how information really is fungus as well. And the billions and billions of pieces of it just transferring constantly. And now that we have AI and all these other elements happening, Starlink, it's accelerating this fungal information transformation from human brain to human brain anyway. But even in the animal world, their communication is a network of fungal growth. And this caused me to understand that everything is kind of on a mass scale behaving like fungus if you were to watch it in a petri dish. When you watch fungus grow in a petri dish, it's very rapid. It's one cell talking to another, and it's moving to try and find the food. And it was just amazing to watch that small example of a fungal growth really represent everything else: information, reproduction, and technology itself also can be considered fungus, literally, because without the human being, there wouldn't be any at all. There would just be rock, water, and plants. So since we are the spore, basically, of this large fungus, if we are successful at leaving our planet before it becomes uninhabitable, then we literally would be considered the spore of the fungus that we left behind. So there's another metaphor kind of showing what's really going on.
Mr. Mark, as an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
My long-term goals is to. I think it's important for everybody to know this because if I knew this when I was 5 or 6 years old, I would understand a lot of why what is. Um, Almost any question can be answered through fungus theory, and I mean that lightly, but there's some truth to it that if you focused on the question long enough and found the sources of evidence that would explain the outcomes of these situations, it's almost answerable. Um, and I have yet to really not be able to answer a question, even in general, at least. And some questions are not answerable, and I would go to say that those are the ones that should not be answered, and that's basically hidden true origin (HTO). It should not be answered because it would stop the growth of consciousness. That's why it's hidden.
Mr. Mark, so what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an author like you?
Hmm. Um, this concept came as an idea involuntarily on me. I'm a critical thinker, and I'm an intense thinker. So all of my work is really intense. But um, when your when your subconscious imposes an idea on you that you wouldn't rather think about, and what happened to me was I had to think about it for 4 weeks and think, well, I'm not going to get a degree in science, but it kept gnawing at me to go to the computer and start research. So my advice to other concept thinkers and writers is to listen to that and then become accountable for it because your subconscious is really kind of telling you the job that you're supposed to do. And if you avoid it, you become a frustrated artist. I've done that lots where this is what I want to do. You become frustrated and you feel you know, unaccomplished, and you feel like you're missing out on your purpose in life. Your purpose isn't actually yours. It's your subconscious telling you what it is. So I, I hope that helps. Even David Lynch talks like this. When you get that idea, it's not necessarily yours, but it's your responsibility to act on it.
Thank you for that advice, Mr. Mark. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Definitely Origin of Species from Darwin himself. And I'm not I'm not going to say a book specifically because I really never read books to finish them. I've read lots of chapters that are interesting and accumulated pretty much just the little knowledge I need to go to work. I don't want to become a librarian in my head, and the, the human brain can only contain so much information. So I'd rather work on my own. Uh, and Yeah, that's my advice too.
Thank you, Mr. Mark. And how has working on this theory changed the way you move through the world and perceive your own consciousness?
I never felt so complete um, till now. It took me to grow into my 50s to really accidentally run into this and go. I mean, when my idea physiologically, I just cleansed myself of nervousness as I thought, what physiologically is happening to me? Because I didn't really know. It started as just one idea, and it started to really just take the stress out of my life. And I just got a great understanding of the function of everything. And I just went to work looking for the evidence. And as I did, it became a channeling process, kind of for years. I was just channeling this and falling into my lap. So um, there's a before fungus theory life for me, and then there's an after. So that's the best way to describe it.
If your theory is even partially true, what is one thing humanity should start or stop doing to better align with the cosmic process of growth?
Well, as it's said in the book many times, there's nothing you and I can do to stop or promote what's going on. It's made so that we won't totally have control of it because who I'll call it a creator because they created a condition for us. If that creator left it up to you and I, we would if we don't know what's fully going on, we would steer the ship in the wrong direction, even thinking that we're steering it in the right direction. So it's not our place to really steer this ship. Um, and be yourself, be your authentic self is the best thing to describe for anybody. And there's a lot of bad people being authentic, and there's a lot of good people being authentic. So that's not a really good regulatory focus. And it takes everybody to make the world go around. It takes everybody to make conscious grow, and that's what you're watching. And lately, the tragic events lately kind of show that. It shows a response from somebody being highly conscious and aware and explaining those things, and then a reaction to those explanations. So it's just a ping pong back and forth, becoming more conscious, more aware. And in a way, you can't really denounce any event in the past because that's how conscious grows, and we're here today, and we will be capable of leaving Earth in the end. So my advice is to be authentic and build an understanding that this is a system, absolutely, and that you're a part of it. And hopefully, this will generate a unity in the global effort of the primary goal of the fungus, which is to leave Earth before it's too late.
So, what is the most significant scientific or philosophical challenge to your theory, and how do you address it?
A philosophical challenge.
Yes.
Well, the philosophical challenge was before the idea came in, and then I was relaxed. I was like, no, my response to myself was, "It's not that easy, Mark. It's not that easy." I just chanted that for about 2 days, and it couldn't be because we live in this complicated world, and you can't really signify everything right and wrong, and it's this ping pong world of of shattered ideas that you can't really make concrete out of, and that's a constant that must remain that I've learned. But um, so I was at ease in writing this book. Finally, at the end of towards the end of my life, I was able to really start compiling evidence. There was self-validating all of these observations of humanity and the tragedy and why it exists, and I just was able to really start to put together the engine, what the engine is actually making and why. And if I can get people to understand that they're involved in this engine, their place in it is it can uh, expect only your action and participation. But there really is no uh, guidelines or guardrails or um, regulatory elements to give anybody because conscious growth brings each human being into the world as it is, no matter what it is, to be a contributor to its own growth.
Mr. Mark, how has the theory been received by experts in the fields of mycology, astrobiology, and neuroscience? What has been the most interesting feedback you've received?
Well, academic science is like getting hit with a baseball bat, kind of. I just mean that lightly. But I was told by I had a meeting with a professor at UCLA and her grad students. They all had a hard time with it. And I asked the professor when everyone was left the meeting. I go, well, what am I doing? She goes, you're going to have a difficult time. Was her answer, and I thought, awesome. That's one response. But things have changed a lot since then. The science has exploded into kind of a pop culture. People are becoming educated day to day, and these ideas or realities is what science is really after all the time. Are starting to feed people's brains to the point where their subconscious is making better sense out of the world that they're in, just on a natural scale. But fungus theory is a huge leap because not only does it explain the big picture, which is the lifespan of the universe, but lifespan of the solar system and Earth. And the big picture describes the lifespan of the entire universe. So there's two windows for us that we live in. The big picture is basically from burn from Big Bang to burnout, and burnout means when all light burns out. And it's scheduled. It's about 3 trillion years or more that there will be no more illuminating light from any of our suns or stars. So if you were in a spaceship in 3 trillion years from now, you would look out your spaceship window and you wouldn't see anything, just pitch black. And so I've got it marked. That's a marker anyway. From the beginning of the Big Bang to the end of light is the entire true calendar that we humans live in. And actually, our biological timeline here on Earth is called the minutia of time. So to give you a perspective of time, the entire planet's biology, beginning and end, is just in the minute compared to the expansion of all light and matter. And in the end, if I could throw this in there, why all this? Why produce consciousness through a fungus in a cold, dark, expanding universe? Because that's the only way you could do it. You couldn't, if you study this, you couldn't really manufacture you and I any other way, which means it's a concept, which means somebody conceived it long before the concept appears. So there's proof of a God, if you want to call it a God or a conceiver. Uh, and in the end, the only possible thing that you could think would be possible, if this is a true cultivation of a mind, is a harvest, right? So I call it the unigalactic conscious harvest, where you would scoop up all this intelligence at the very end of everything. And aliens, if they're real, which I think they're here, and they've always visited, uh, those are survivors of their long gone planet. So somehow they were able to achieve their technological evacuation standards before their planet devoured them, or they left and it devoured what was left on the planet. And so they're visiting other planets and they're visiting us, and they could end up being really just be galactic ecologists going out and like farmers, just helping the other planets survive, uh, the other fungus conscious growths survive the end of their planet. And uh, if that were true, and that's what their efforts are coming here, obviously, maybe some planets didn't survive. Maybe that fungal conscious growth didn't meet its technological evacuation standards in time, and a meteorite came, or it was self-annihilation. They they didn't make it. So there's kind of a need to get this harvest at the end of time to be as big as they can. So it's a product like any produce from the produce store, an apple or an orange or a conscious brain.
Mr. Mark, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please to listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in first season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love letters in fourth season, and my movie 101 review and music 101 in fourth season as well, and science 101 and sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Mark,
Thank
what is
you.
the next step in your research? What question are you the most driven to answer next?
Um, I don't have any more questions. It's uh, It's they've been answered with fungus theory, and I'm still learning about fungus theory. But all I'm trying to do is promote the answers to the questions that I've been able to put together, and also challenge those questions so they can just be improved on. I think they're significant enough, these answers, to challenge the scientific world, and any feedback that I would get would be just in the process of refining them. And if they're wrong, great. That's what we need to find out.
Mr. Mark Christensen, thank you so much for sharing your fungus theory to the world. And we
It's
are
been great to do it.
hoping for more and more empowering fungus to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, it's just you can find fungus theory on Amazon, or marklchristensen.com, and look for my new book called Cosmonosis.
Cosmonosis. Yes, people, let's support Mr. Mark Christensen, because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering mystery of the universe to come. So, Mr. Mark, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much for having me on. Thanks again.
Marticon people, see you soon.